I wanted to do a little addendum to our episode 19, where we're comparing the different style of tube, power amp, transistor amp, Class D and the Nanotube power amp. And I was doing also a comparison between the AMP1 preamp and the TriAmp preamp section. In this comparison, I want to show you what I could achieve when in the old tube world. The TriAmp was my signature amp that I designed with Hughes and Kettner, and the Mark II version is my favorite version. And the amp which sits here is the amp that I played all the years, and I of course tweaked it to the max. I was not changing parts on the PCB, so all the resistors and whatever capacitors are all original, but I was heavily into changing tubes. So by changing tubes, you can kind of modify your tube amp. If you look at the schematic of a tube amp, you can see there's all these different tubes in the different stages. There's the input stage, there's like the next stage that might clip, and then there is another stage, the cathode follower stage, then there's a phase reverse stage, and there's the power amp tubes. And every of these tubes can be changed. The funny thing about tubes is, just looking at them, I can show you differences. For instance, I have this very old, nice Hughes and Kettner tube, or this one here. Let me show you three different tubes. I have... here's the Holy Grail. This is the Holy Grail in tubes. So let me show you these tubes here. Oh, this is a Tesla, so it's... So, this is a Tesla tube, and it has a huge system. So looking at the system, the two plates are very far apart, okay? Compared to this Tesla tube, which has a small system, the two plates are very narrow. And as a rule of thumb, a very easy rule, it is a system that has a very far, oops, I try to show to the camera, system has also more headroom most of the time. So these tubes don't break up at the same point as the ones with the small systems. The small system tube has more a rounder, bluesier behavior, and the bigger systems, they have more headroom. I like them better for like input stages to kind of get a nice, good signal at the input. And then for me, as being the vintage guy, I like small system tubes at certain places, and then this smaller system tubes, they kind of have a mellower tone, which is the tone that I'm going for, more vintage sound. Yeah, and of course you can experiment, and this is what I've done in the past with my, tube collection. There's this little box here, and you can find real good tubes like this one that I just had in my hand. This is a Tesla gold pin tube, or I can have, this Mullard. I'm a big Marshall fan, so Mullard was kind of the real deal tube for the Marshall amps. And then this is another Tesla with a big system I showed you. On the other hand, I was simply collecting different high-grade tubes for input stages, blah, 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 because they are also microphonic sensitive. Here's a nice box that for my collection, all that stuff. And there's more boxes in the other room, I've been to many stores and I bought everything I could find that sounds great. So that's me, the tube nerd. And I was spending hours, literally hours, just swapping tubes, finding out which combination of tubes is what I want to hear for my tone. And I've done this with my TriAmp, which is exactly this TriAmp. And if you look inside this TriAmp, you can see, you know, there's a little dot. And I know these two tubes come from Larry amps from Nuremberg, because we kind of swapped some tubes. I got this great tube here, blah, blah, blah. Then there's, you know, all kind of tubes. And by changing the combination of different tubes, you can fine-tune the compression, the overtones, and the feel of the amp. Okay, so this is how far I could get in the world of tube amps. And now, since we have the setup here with the AB switcher, I can simply switch from the TriAmp preamp to the AMP1 preamp. And the scary thing is the AMP1 preamp is tube free. There is no tube in the preamp. The Nanotube, the sub-miniature tube we are using in the AMP1, is working in the power amp stage. So what we are comparing is real tube versus no tube. So maybe you think, oh, we heard this story many times before, but I'm so proud that we designed a non-tube preamp that does the same as an all-tube preamp. Okay, and this is what I want to show you here. Let me see. Okay, I'm sitting close to the transformer, so there's a little hum in the... This is one. That's the other one. So, is there any big difference? I don't know. This is an amp sound which is clean on the edge of breakup, where the tubes are actually clipping. And this is what I like, as you know, we can show that the style of clipping is actually tube-like. It is not just clean and then some frequency spectrum. I can show you with this setup here that it's yeah, that it is the clipping of the tube that we actually can hear. So when it's a bit hum here, it is the TriAmp. I show you. So sorry, this is the TriAmp, and that's the AMP1. At this point, the tube was not heated. Now we have the same level. So, okay, and this is using my best selection from all the tubes that I own here, because this was my amp that I used on every gig in the studio and wherever I went. So this shows you the clean channel. Okay, let's compare. Of course, there could be other settings, but I wanted to show you real tube versus our AMP1 no tube design. But it's a design that you only find with BluGuitar, because we are very proud to have this kind of knowledge how to get that sound. If you compare it with other transistor or whatever amps, it is not at that level. Okay, let's try and compare the vintage channel to the TriAmp. Where's the channel select? Is it? This could be it. This could be. So pretty close. This is the TriAmp two A channel. I'm just doing the A channels at this point. And again, in this channel, I do have, I think it was this one. No, it wasn't. It was this one. Or this one. Ah. So, or actually I forgot which tube was used in which stage. So you see, this is the selected tube. So when I plug the tube and it's not in the circuit, the temperature gets lower and the gain gets a little less. So we have to wait till it's at the same heat level, so it's A-B comparison fair. Yeah, I have a little hum here, but you can. Yeah, sounds so tubey, and it doesn't matter which amp I'm playing. It's all tube versus our vintage channel. And as I said before, selected tubes, the whole 9 yards, anything I could find that gets both amp. Yeah, and I simply can dial it in. What have I done? It's nothing. It's just the vintage channel. And okay, the bass is kind of high, the mids are in the middle, and the treble is kind of in the middle. Nothing spectacular here. And this is, yeah, replacing a bunch of tubes in the TriAmp. The input stage, and that stage, which is, yeah, kind of interesting. Okay, let's check the classic channel, which is the 3A here. I hope that's the right one. Okay, we need a little bit more volume. 3A is this one. Let me get the BluBox cleaner. Can we get a little bit more gain on the monitor? I want to make sure. Okay, that's cool. Okay, now I have to reduce the volume here and switch to the classic. Okay. I mean, if there's a difference, I'm sure I could tweak it just by setting all the parameters at the same level. You know, this is, do you hear any difference of there's no tube in the AMP1? I can't hear it, I can't feel it. And this, to me, was the most important part. Doing a design that is different from a tube amp, it's not to make any compromise. You know, I wouldn't be on stage with an amp that is not as good as anything I played in the past, like my big collection of vintage amps or the TriAmp, which was my flexible multi-channel head that I was that kind of setup that I was using on stage. You know, The vintage amps, they have always been used in the studio, sometimes with my 3-piece band or with my Hendrix project, just to be so authentic and have not a multi-channel head. But like 99% of my gigs, I was using this 13 tube loaded TriAmp with, you know, all the whole 9 yards to get there. And you can see there is no fundamental difference. There is no, it's not better. It is at the same quality level in tone, it's the same quality level in feel, and this is, I simply forgot about what I'm playing. I mean, of course, a tube amp looks nice and it has a nice glow, but it heats up. We can roast some bread here, bake some eggs, and it's nice glow in the dark. But once you look around this heavy tube amp versus this lightweight nanotube amp, that's an experience and you will never go back. So that's my story about why I created our technology, and in the end why I even started my own company with BluGuitar, because I believe that somebody like me has to do their job properly. And I'm not saying tube amps are bad, I'm just saying the next generation of guitar amplifiers can be lightweight, compact and modern without sacrificing any of the tone or feel for you and me as a player. So this is all tube versus nanotube, no compromise.